So I appreciate any patience or your patience. Donnie Beliak says they're watching from station 32. Okay, so I'm gonna jump in. I was hoping to be able to share a screen with you all to so that you could see my PowerPoint, because that's what I do in some Zoom classes that I'm in, but I don't think we have that capability unless somebody can walk me through that. So I'm just going to get started. Feel free to put something in the chat if you have a thought or a question. I would love that. I don't know how good I am at multitasking, but I'm going to do my best. So the name of this presentation is How to Survive and Thrive in Depression is the topic. So I'm kind of taking this class an approach of through my my own experience, but also trying to address the topic at large. So a little bit of background is I've been in the firefighting EMS world for around 23 years. I started my career in Independence, Missouri, where I worked for a couple of years. I worked in KCK for 4 years, and I've been at Lenexa for 17. I went to school to be a teacher and a coach. That was my my beginning plan. And then at the age of 25, I had my first run-in with clinical depression that really kind of blindsided me. And I've had 6 bouts of the clinical depression, or sometimes called major depression, between the ages of 25 and now 54. And ultimately, that led me into the fire service. And so I'm currently the FAO or driver at one of our stations in Lenexa. I work and I'm our peer support coordinator and fairly involved in the metro with that kind of work. And then I'm also a student at UMKC in their counseling program with the mental health emphasis. I'm about halfway of the classes with that. So just a little bit of background. You guys that are on the other end, if there's any specific reasons that you tuned in today, I'd love to hear those. But here's kind of what this presentation came out of is oftentimes I get asked 2 questions regarding depression. One is what is it like? And 2 is how do I help someone that's dealing with depression? So that's kind of the angles that I'm coming at it today. If you had slides, the next thing that I would have you looking at is it'd say our goals, and really my goals are to connect with you all, which I have to admit I'm struggling with, because I would really love to be sitting in a station or in a classroom doing this, but this is the best we can do, so bear with me. To bring some education and to bring hope to maybe somebody who's dealing with the depression or is trying to support. So that could be as a peer supporter, that could be as a family member, friend, or whatever that looks like. The next slide that I would be showing you is a picture of, oh, can you guys see that? When I just lost what I had, and it went to my PowerPoint, so I don't know what you can see anymore. Can you guys hear me still? Somebody, if you could reply on that and let me know if you can see me. We still only see you. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay. Well, that's probably going to work out okay. So The picture or present of what I have is next, and I want to kind of tell you why I'm doing this. Is I would be showing you a picture of my parents, who are 84 and 85 years old and are both still alive. And I think there's a really important four-letter word, when we're dealing with depression, whether you're in it, or you're helping somebody. And the four-letter word is hope. And so I originally did this presentation just for students at UMKC, and I show pictures throughout it of the life I've had from age 25 to 54, because if I had acted on some suicidal and ideation and a plan, I would have never had the opportunity to see and live and be part of the things that I show through picture. So I wish I could show you these pictures, but I can't. But my mother had a history of depression herself, and I'm pretty confident that my father's mother, although probably not diagnosed in that day, also suffered from depression. My mom, to her credit, I would say really dealt with that in a very healthy way, best she could, utilizing uh, antidepressants and the best they knew, and clinical help to try to get well. I would say probably my father's grandmother, from what I know, sounds like maybe used more unhealthy coping mechanisms, which was seemed to be through substance abuse, chain smoking, and just kind of a reckless style of living. And then the next picture that I show is a picture of my wife and I have 31 years next to it. And I have the quote from, if you've when you're at a wedding, or you've been part of a wedding, is that it's in sickness and health. And my point being, in both that picture of my parents and that picture of myself, is the person who's dealing with depression suffers, but also the person who is trying to care for, support their person that they love with depression, they suffer, and it changes their life. And honestly, it's really a two-sided coin. Um, and then the next picture is a picture of my two daughters that are 26 and 21, and it shows some of the adult experiences that they've had and that I've got to be a part of. Okay, so I'm going to shift now to a slide that it has a picture. Probably you guys that are in the fire side or the EMS piece have seen some Paul Combs artwork. And this picture depicts a firefighter in his gear in the ocean, and he's drowning. And he has around his foot is hooked this big weight, and it says pride on it. And the quote that's coming out of him as he's drowning says, "I don't need any help. I can rescue myself." And at the same point, there's these sharks that are coming towards him. And one says depression, one says suicide, one says PTSD, another says marital stress. And I'm sure you could put other labels on there that would connect to that. So the title of that slide I have is, when I think about depression, for me, this is the dive. It's like you're drowning. And if you think about it in the fire service world, when we talk about, well, I don't know if any of you have been to the Mayday class that's put on. And one of the points that's made in that class is that when they surveyed a very large audience of people who had called for Maydays, 80% of the people said they should have called for it earlier. But they did not. Probably fear of embarrassment. I can get out of this on my own. Whatever their reasoning was, in hindsight, they said the call for help should have been earlier. Okay, I'm getting some good feedback from one of the guys that's helping me. So, anyways, I want to give you just a little bit of my personal story. So, I originally went to college to be a teacher and coach, and uh, and so at 25, I was the head baseball coach at a local college here in Kansas City, and quite honestly, that was right where I wanted to be. And I went about that venture of being coach and teacher in I'd say a super aggressive, like wanting to be helpful to others. And I was newly married and basically was driving in from Lawrence each day at about 5:30, and then going back home around 6:37 p.m. and kind of repeating that cycle over and over. And um, and out of that, I'd say about 3 months into that, kind of led to some signs and symptoms and some things that I wasn't really aware of what it was. Quite honestly, I thought it was like burnout. I thought, what's wrong with me? And the like. So the the I'm gonna kind of give you a definition of depressive disorders, and then take you to the signs and symptoms of that. So depressive disorders, if I were to define it, and this is basically out of the diagnostic manual that's used by clinicians, it says the common features of all depressive disorders is the presence of sad, empty, or irritable mood accompanied by somatic and cognitive changes, so physical or changes of the mind that significantly affect the individual's capacity to function. And then it says what differs among them are issues of duration, timing, or presumed etiology, basically meaning causation of the condition. So when I speak of depression today, I'm more on the end of major depression, clinical depression. Typically, all what you'll see on that is that it's these things, that these symptoms that I'm going to share with you next, that last more than 2 weeks. There'd be at least 5 of them, and 2 of them that will, one of the 2 has to rise to the top, is loss of interest in things that you normally have, or just a consistent depressive mood. So I'm going to go through those signs and symptoms, and if you were looking at the screen with me, what you would see is some the things that I had italicized are the ones that were specific to me. So these are signs and symptoms of depression: trouble concentrating, remembering details, and making decisions. Fatigue, feelings of guilt, worthlessness, and helplessness, pessimism, and hopelessness. And then the 5th one that I have is insomnia, interrupted sleep, sleeping too much. So for me, it was more of an interrupted sleep. And I would say essentially what I saw was that trouble concentrating, remembering details, and making decisions. If I think back to my head coach baseball life, these things started to interfere with my ability to do the job like I normally do. Or if I think about it at other bouts in my life while I was in the fire service, same thing. And then what happens when you have trouble concentrating, remembering details, making decisions, fatigue can kick in, and you have, for personally, I have feelings of guilt, worthlessness, and helplessness. So there's this cycle that's taking you down. Like I would say that that is actually kind of this taking the dive or the drowning process, like that picture of the firefighter that I described, where he needs to call for a mayday. She needs to call for a mayday to get some help to cope with what's happening. And when you start having heavy feelings of guilt, worthlessness, and helplessness, that's going to bring a very pessimistic attitude and bring you to a place of what feels like hopelessness. And and kind of then some further signs and symptoms that you might see are irritability, um, a restlessness, or which I see more is inability to unable to calm your mind, a loss of interest in things that were once pleasurable. So that could relate to a whole bunch of things, and um, up to and including like hobbies or things that you normally do, sex, you name it, things that would normally be pleasurable. It's missing. It's gone. It's like there's this dark cloud that has overcome you, and that's the way it feels. I have overeating or appetite loss. For me, it was more appetite loss. The next two didn't really affect me as much. Aches, pains, headaches, or cramps that won't go away. Digestive problems that don't get better, even with treatment. So these are things that uh, I say oftentimes that I picked this up from a guy named Dr. Viscott, and he talks about that emotional illness is a storage disease. And when we store things and don't have ways for it to vent or to come out, it has the ability to show up psychosomatic ways, so in physical ways. And you probably know of people or have been a person who, maybe you were looking to figure out physically what's going on, and at the end of the day, maybe there was a diagnosis of stress-related symptoms or some emotional aspect that was allowing these physical things to come out. And then the last two things is, and this is a key word, persistent, sad, anxious, or empty feelings. And again, that's the part where, when talking about major depression or clinical depression, about the 2 weeks or more, and it's kind of this persistent place. It's very hard to escape. It's like you can't get out from underneath the dark cloud. And then the last thing that I have along signs and symptoms is suicidal thoughts, plans, attempts, or completion. So one of the things that I like to bring up in this part is in relation to suicide, is that honestly, and I've seen this. I know we've got some firefighters that are watching. Is we have these calls, and this honestly, right? This is the season that we're seeing more and more of these calls, and maybe even more so because of the current conditions that are going on in society. And oftentimes I hear the thought process of, my gosh, it's such a selfish act, the suicide. And what I want to point out is my experience, and what I see oftentimes is that it's actually a deception of the mind. And oftentimes somebody's thought process might be that the choice of suicide would be the best thing that they could do. I know I didn't really want to die, but I wanted the pain to end. I wanted the dark cloud to leave. I didn't see another option because of this dark cloud of how to get out of where I was. So thankfully for me, when I came to that place, I took a road. I ended up taking a road, not going anywhere past the plan, and seeking help. And I'm going to kind of hopefully circle around to that here in a moment. So those are signs and symptoms. And then the next thing I like to share on my on the PowerPoint is I have a picture of me and my older sisters who are 7 and 9 years older. And again, remember hope. So there are both great things that I've got to enjoy with my adult older sisters and difficult things in their lives that I've got to be beside them with. So when you are with somebody who might be dealing with depression, you're looking for the things that might give them a glimmer or a glance of hope. For instance, I was recently in a conversation with a firefighter, and as I listened for a pretty extended amount of time, I came to the recognition that the things that he was most impacted about, most cared about, most wanted to see into the future were his two young daughters. So that became an area and a place of focus to look at, because that is the hope, that is the glimmer, that is the piece that he wants to see. And I want to help him or her get through this season, or this temporary season, to the other side of it. And I think one of the things that we have to remember as supporters of somebody that's struggling with depression is they have a perspective that has been warped, and they can't see what you see. So us as a peer supporter or a friend or a family member, we get to bring to them perspective that they may not be able to see. And we're actually kind of asking them to trust us in that process. So I'm going to switch gears, and you guys, I'm going to also try to come back to this. I haven't been able to see if anybody's putting up the chat, so I'm going to try something here. Okay. If you do post something, I should be able to see it. This is the part where I switch from you're on the dive to how do I survive? How do I go from when I think about diving, like that firefighter with the weight on him and the sharks coming at him, that's a descent. And the first thing that I can do is like maybe just like a doggy paddle, which is not a very effective stroke, to try to get myself above water. And then hopefully I'm going to do things that give me better strokes to be able to navigate and move down on this journey more effectively. And ultimately go from surviving to thriving. So here's a few things that I have regarding survive. So I like this acronym. If the acronym is FEAR, FEAR, and there's two sides to it. One side is face everything, or I'm sorry, F everything and run. And the flip side of that is face everything and recover. And if I was with you right now, I would be asking the question, what are unhealthy coping mechanisms or things that are attached to run? Okay, so the F everything and run, right? We can run in a lot of different ways. We can run through avoidance. We can run through isolation. We could run through addiction, whether that's gambling, substance abuse, pornography. We can run through uh, risky behavior, um, taking, chances that we normally wouldn't. We could run through extramarital affairs because we haven't felt and we want to feel. So there's a whole lot of ways to run. And honestly, people that are doing that, right, they're trying to find relief from where they are. But unfortunately, unhealthy uh, coping mechanisms tend to create more destruction in life, and actually not be helpful, right? Even though they could provide a temporary relief. On the flip side, the face everything and recover is hard work. Um, and I was just visiting with someone this morning where we talked about, like, it's uncomfortable. Like if you had two circles and one is comfort and one is discomfort. People don't usually want to hang out in discomfort, but discomfort is where change happens, um, and you can actually recover. So here's some of the things in the survival mode that I have found and see for recovery. So one is just to see a physician, a regular general physician, to make sure that there's not a physical issue or underlying thing that could be leading to depression. The second is to seek professional help. For me, this was really, really hard. So 28 years ago, if you think about stigma today, I would say it was very heightened 28 years ago. As a young man that was 25, and really had a mindset of, I can overcome anything. Matter of fact, my kind of mantra is outwork the other guy and you will succeed. And but unfortunately, in the battle with depression, I just couldn't outwork it. I needed to reach out. I needed to get help. So counseling was a place that I was directed, and eventually took a step in that direction. And the truth is that counselor said, "You need more help than I can give you, Rob, once a week." And so I ended up going into a mental health setting, which I had not a good thought process in regards to gain extended and intensive help that truly I did need, because of the illness that I was dealing with. So in today's world, I would say if you're, I'm assuming everybody out here that's listening is a EMS fire related field or police. We are trying to do a better job of finding culturally competent clinicians that have some understanding of our job. So do your homework to find out who those people are. Check in with your peer support leadership to see who they've identified, to find out somebody who has not only training and tools that maybe we don't know about, because I always say we don't know what we don't know, but also has some understanding of what we do. I have written down medication. I want to tell you this is medication in dealing with depression is certainly not a perfect science. Sometimes I actually felt like, man, I wish I just had a physical injury because it'd be a little more direct, and this is what you do, and this is how you get there. And for me personally, and I think this is pretty common in first responders, is we don't want medication on board. And so that has always been a struggle of mine. And as a matter of fact, I've been on and off of it in an effort to, I guess you would say, not be dependent upon medication. But I'm currently at a low dosage of an antidepressant. And I say that, um, saying, just like we've probably all heard this analogy of a diabetic, um, that if there's something that we need, to bring us to a place of healthiness, why wouldn't we consider that? So I'm not here to say that that's the only way. I'm just here to say that that may be a way or part of, um, the survival process to get you going into a better stroke. Um, and then you got to take a look at what are the healthy coping mechanisms. Uh, and what are some things that I can try? There's things out there like cognitive, therapy, that helps kind of work on mindset. There's meditation, there's journaling, there's mindfulness, there's exercise. There's so many different things that are offered to us, that are healthy coping mechanisms that are really hard, honestly, in the midst of depression, to latch onto. Because when you have a dark cloud over you and you feel, at a place where it's just difficult to get out of bed, um, you really have to work hard to make yourself do things, that you don't want to do. And that's a common thing that I'll say to people is you have to do things you don't want to do. And literally, if that's just one task, to get you going. And I found that I also had to accept less. So me in my normal state, I like to work out at a high level. I'm kind of a CrossFit guy, and I like to get after it. But in the midst of depression, I had to accept, like, taking a walk around the block, doing a set of push-ups, doing much less, but doing something, to move forward. And then the last thing that I have uh, under the survival part is to have honest conversations, um, with the right people in your life. So, who are the right people? Um, I'd say they're people that, fully love, fully accept, and, no judgment. Um, for me, my wife, initially my parents, and then through the years, I've added to, who those people are. I think of it as your tribe, but who can you have honest conversations with, to vent, to share, to be honest. And I'll just share a little story. So I think I was in my second or third year working at Lenexa Fire. I had, included a guy named Mark Brown in my story and my struggle in the midst of depression that I was dealing with at the time. Mark asked me, he said, "So, hey, who do you normally share that with?" And I said, "My wife and my parents, and that's about it. And I've told you." And he said, "Well, what do you think about maybe sharing that with, the crew?" And I thought, no way, I'm not doing that. And that was my first thought. And eventually I thought, well, maybe I should. And so I gained enough courage to, share that with my crew. And I was really amazed by the response. I remember one of my fellow, firefighters, talked about that his wife had dealt with depression and he kind of had an understanding of it. And each person, encountered me in a different way. And I remember one of the guys, Jim, I knew that, like, he totally could not connect to the feelings and the things that I'm sharing with you in this teaching around depression. And, but he came to me later and he said, "Hey man, listen," he said, "My wife and I and the kids, we love to take the boat out to the lake, and we take these life jackets, and, we put them on upside down like a diaper, and we have a beer and we just hang out. And we'd love for you and your wife to come join us." And that was Jim's way of saying, "Hey man, I'm for you. I care about you, and, come be with us." He may not have known what to say, and he didn't need to know what to say, Just the fact that he invited and wanted to have share time with me and my wife and my family said everything to me. Okay, you guys. I hope you're doing okay. I'm going to tell you this video that you can tune into since I can't show it to you. It's called "I Had a Black Dog. His name was Depression." I had a black dog. His name was Depression. If you could take a look at that on your own time, I think it would be really helpful in with the things that I've been sharing. I think it'll kind of illuminate it or make sense to it. So I'm going to switch gears to going from surviving to thriving, and then I'm going to start to hit on the support side of things. Okay. So the thriving part, or so in survival, I talked to you about a doggy paddle stroke and just sustaining and trying to get my my chin above the water. In thriving, I'm trying to move into better things. So here are the things that I have found through dealing with 6 bouts of depression that can help me, and I believe others, to go from survival to thriving, survive to thrive. So you got to determine if meds is a piece of the puzzle for you. When you utilize counseling to survive, then you have to find out, is there a piece or part of that that I need to continue to thrive? Do I need to be on a maintenance program? You know, a car gets out of alignment just going down the road, not necessarily because it's going down bad roads, and it needs a alignment every so often. And so sometimes as people, we could use an alignment too from somebody. And the nice thing about a counsel setting is it's somebody who is objectively kind of looking at you from an outside place and is equipped to maybe offer some things to you that may help your maintenance, just as a mechanic can do that to a car, the things that I can't because I'm not that mechanical. Diet and sleep routine are super important. For me, when I'm at my best, I utilize kind of the paleo diet. It's cleaning up my diet. It allows me to kind of be, I think, mentally sharper, and there's a lot of different plans that one can utilize that will help one thrive. Sleep routine, right? We have difficulty with that because of being shift folks. But you still can control that. You can control sometimes, the guys used to make fun of me because I get my bed made first thing in the morning, and, by about 9 p.m., I'm in it. Because if we catch a call at midnight, I already got 3 hours of sleep. So what adjustments can you do to try to create a place to get the best sleep you can, regardless of how we're hit with calls? And then exercise. I have like sustainable exercise, and so I kind of have a personal rule is I try not to go more than 3 days in a row without exercise. And then I try to be outside as much as possible, to the point of, like, there's this coffee house in the nursery at Family Tree Nursery on Neiman. It's called Cafe Equinox. And so in the middle of the winter, I can go into their nursery and the sun comes through and be with my wife and drink coffee. So I'm always looking for environments that allow me to be outside, to be in the sun, to be in nature, because I think that's really important to thriving. The next piece I have is community. And that goes back to that tribe piece. And I schedule that. So I got a good friend named Steve that He is outside the fire service. I mean, you could be in the fire service, could be outside, but I meet with Steve weekly, and I have a group of men that I meet with on Wednesday mornings for about an hour and a half. That's on my calendar. I every Saturday morning that I'm off shift, my wife and I connect intentionally to sit down and visit. And I have a multitude of other people, both in the fire department, in the peer support world, in other realms, that are my community, are my tribe. And here's what I think is really important about this group is giving them the permission to speak into your life. I always say, you know what, I think we have blind spots that we can't see, or as an old baseball coach, I think we have holes in our swing. Um, and we need people that we can trust, who care for us and love us, that would can speak honestly and openly into that, and that we can believe what they're sharing is true. So, and as far as the depression goes, I tell those people, if you see something that looks like, smells like those things, let me know. But I also use it in the realm of character and things that I are my values and beliefs that people can call me up to. I like to say, instead of call out, let's call each other up. And I wonder, I've been just pondering this, if in the first responder world we might need to do more calling up to each other. So hobbies, if you're going to thrive, you gotta schedule those things. You gotta hold on. Don't let them be used as, I used to fish. You know, I used to hunt. I used to play tennis. I used to, as we get busier and busier, as you go from work life to second job life to married life to family life, a lot of those things that are places that give us rest or joy can go away. I'll give you an interesting example. Is we have this at Lenexa, we're experimenting with having dogs in the fire station. So we've come across this way to do it experimentally at no cost, with a pause for autism, and they train these standard poodles. I know it's not the typical dog you think about in fire service, but we're thinking about painting black circles on their white fur. No, just kidding. But a woman came in who trains these dogs, and we're fostering them at one of our stations right now. And so she came in to have a meeting with our fire chief, two other chiefs, myself, and she brought her daughter, who's autistic, and two of these dogs. And the dogs, she said, when they're fully trained, kind of as therapy dogs or comfort dogs, they recognize how to come into and absorb people's pain, bring comfort, whatever it is. And then what they do for restoration is they literally lay down and rest, or they play. So rest and play is something that I think that we as people have to make sure that we guard, protect, and continue to do, so that we can have restoration. Spirituality or faith. If for me, I'm a big faith guy, and again, like, I calendar that, and I also create space to make that connection, and so that can be very valuable to folks, or whatever that looks like for you. Then I have journal, mindfulness, meditation, etc. Journaling becomes a really great place to release things that may be bouncing around in your head, and you just can't get rid of. And and lots of times a really effective way is if somebody's having difficulty sleeping, is to have a journal by your bed and to dump what are the thoughts on, so there's a place for them to go, um, and then maybe might be more helpful to resting. So those are some of the things that I feel like I've learned and I've seen others do to help thrive, get better strokes, maybe avoid uh, the depressive places, um, maybe lessen, uh, maybe be able to kind of resiliently move through those things as you do those types of things. So now I'm going to shift gears to providing support. So this is the second question I get asked. The first question, and hopefully I was able to paint a picture, guys, of that. Was what is it like to be depressed? And if I didn't say this, like it is so like for me, it is just so opposite of who I am. So it just doesn't make sense sometimes that somebody who normally functions, I would say at a high level, literally could be so enveloped in this dark cloud and be difficult to do the smallest thing. Now, remember, the supporter, whether that's as a peer supporter, probably at a higher level, that person who lives with, or a friend, it's difficult to deal with. So here are some things. I took a few of these things from a website. It's called, the organization is called NAMI. It's www.nami.org. And then I kind of also ran them by my wife at the same time, who has been my primary supporter. So 3 things to remember. One, you as the supporter are in the process of learning. So give yourself some grace as you are learning and trying to figure out how to help this person that you care for. You're not gonna understand it or even figure it out overnight, and and you may never fully understand it. Um, but I think you can continue to grow in the process of learning about it and figure out how to better support. The second thing to remember is support is not control. And I think what I would say to this is like, um, this can be very frustrating to work with somebody that you're kind of like, come on, pull up your big boy boots and do this. Um, but support is not control. If I were gonna trade that word in, I think I would trade it for like collaboration. Support is about collaboration, is working with this person that you're caring for to help them along in this process of maybe surviving, maybe working into a place of thriving, or if you go all the way back to the beginning, helping them to keep the dive from going further. So the third thing, that was 3. Oh, wait, I did 2. The third thing is the person you are supporting. Remember this, is they are dealing with an illness. Um, and so I had a clinician that taught a class of mine recently, and she said that I try to always think that the person is doing their very best. Um, and I have to admit, my first thought was, well, what if they're not? And but as I thought about that, I thought, man, if I can have that perspective that someone is doing their very best in that moment in time, that puts me in a better place to be supportive, and I think it makes me non-judgmental, to think about it in that perspective. So here's a list of things. I have 8 of them of how to be supportive, and I'm going to go through those. And if any of you are interested, when I'm done of me sharing any information any sort of way, just let me know. My email is at work is r Hole HOLE at Lenexa.com. Um, my phone number is 913-636-9054. And you are more than welcome to reach out to me. So here's some things on the being supportive. So, whoops, sorry, I jumped ahead. Okay, so be a student of the illness. So do everything you can to learn as much as possible about the illness. In this case, depression, which is what you guys are doing today. 2, show interest and support the treatment plan. So whatever the treatment plan is that somebody's going through, be curious, learn it, see what they're doing, so you can collaborate and you can be supportive in the process. The third thing is share and support. Find your own support. I kind of group that together. Share and support, meaning, let's say it's from the peer support world. Don't be the only person that's in this support role. Let's say it's in a more personal way. Allow other people to be part of that team, that tribe. I know that person may only want a minimal amount, but what I'm saying is don't share the burden of being support to someone by yourself. When I say find your own support, that could be professionally, that could be through a colleague, a friend, another family member, but make sure that you have support systems in place to keep you in a healthy place. The fourth thing is to listen patiently, which that's challenging, because I think sometimes when you're dealing with somebody who's depressed, you're going to hear a lot of the same things over and over, and you're going to have ideas or solutions, right? Because we're fixers. But man, sometimes you just got to let the person share, be heard, and be patient with them, and then discern and look for opportunities to collaborate with them on what they might want to do, or what they'll let you do to be helpful in the process. The fifth thing I have is to keep normal routines or activities. So you as the supporter, like I know that early on in my role of trying to support others, I think, I don't know if any of you ever felt this, but where you want something more than they do, and you get sucked into it to the place and a level that you're not taking care of your normal routines and doing the activities and the things that you need to do to keep your cup full. And because if our cup's not full, we're not going to really honestly have the emotional capacity to over time be a person that can support well and sustain the ability to do that. So to the best of your ability, we're going to have times where we get interrupted and there's going to be a little bit of deeper investment, but try to get back to or maintain normal routines and activities. The sixth thing I have is to push or encourage the person that you're working with. So that takes a lot of discernment. This is the thing that I thought my wife personally did best with me. Like I can't imagine anybody doing better. So when I was in the worst of the worst and having a difficult time getting out of bed and getting the day started, she would say something like, "Hey, hon, could you get out of bed and could you just do this one thing?" She'd give me like kind of one assignment. And what happens is if you can get to one thing, sometimes you can get to the next thing. So there is this push, and there's this encouragement, and there's a balance in that, and it takes great patience to be a good supporter and do that. And I'd like to tell you there's some sort of magic way to know when to push and to encourage, but it's a discernment ability. It's the ability to know the person, into your very best move. And I think one of the things that we have to remember in all of that, like, is I always try to hold on. It's progress, not perfection. And you know what? Sometimes as a supporter, I might get it wrong, and I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to try to do better the next time. The seventh thing I have is to prepare a crises plan. Essentially, what that means is, like, what are my avenues if this person needs help of any sort? And how do I? Sorry, guys, I got a text from somebody that I think needs some uh, that I need to get back to. So I'm gonna. But anyways, sorry, it hit me for a second, and I will. I'm good now. So prepare a crisis plan is like, do I have hotlines to use? Johnson County Mental Health has a line that we can utilize right here in town. And being prepared to whatever comes up, how am I going to handle that so I'm not caught off guard in the moment? And then lastly, is just don't give up, and hang on to hope. Um, and honestly stay in the game with that tribe and those people, that you've gathered around this person that you're supporting, so that you can be encouraged in this challenging journey that you might be on with somebody. Okay, you guys, so I'm going to try to close this up, and it looks like I'm almost an hour in. And so as I'm closing it up, right now my screen, I can't see what you're chatting. So if you have a question or a thought that you want to put up there, please do. And when I finish here, I'll come out of that and look at it. But I when I was preparing this originally for the students at UMKC, and I was just looking at it from the depression standpoint and not the supportive standpoint, I had this idea in my own life to take a mathematical perspective. So here's what I'm saying in this. Is I did the math. I figured that most of my bouts of depression lasted from anywhere from 3 months to 6 months. So I just went at the most, and I said 6 months. I've had 6 bouts of those between 25 and 54. So I said 6 bouts times 6 months equals 3 years with depression. I'm 55 years old. I minus 3 years, that equals 51 years without depression. 3 years with depression. 51 years without depression. 3 years of 54 years is 5.5% of my life with depression. 51 years is 94.5% of life depression free. So I share that because I think, again, perspective, like, seasons are temporary. Right now, when I look out the window, there's pretty much no leaves on the trees. Most of them are in my gutters. And but guess what? Winter will get over, spring will come, and there'll be a new season. So I think that we have to, as a support person or a person in the midst of it, of the depression, we try our best to keep perspective, and many of you who are peer supporters have probably heard the phrase, it's okay to not be okay. And like the add-on to that is, but it's not okay to stay that way. So back to that acronym, instead of F everything and run, how do I face everything and recover so that I can be a part of changing the season and shifting perspective. So the very last slide, if you were looking at it, and I wish you could. It's probably my favorite picture that I have. It's a picture of my daughter and I, Jess, doing the Psycho Wyco run in Wyandotte County Park, which you can do. We do the one loop, which is a 10-mile loop. And so she's 26, and about a year ago, she went through something pretty difficult. And what she asked is, Dad, can we train for this run? And so, as a parent, when you get an opportunity to be with your adult children, you take whatever they will give you because you want to be with them because lives get busier. And so what we did was we trained on a regular basis physically at Shawnee Mission Park, Wyandotte County Park, and other places to be prepared for this 10-mile run. Well, in the about the halfway point, we're running through the woods and there's a photographer set up. And my daughter says, "Hey, how about if I jump on your back and we take a picture?" We get that picture. And I was like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." And so in this picture, she's jumped on my back and she's on top and she's got her fist up in the air, like this, like, look what we've done. And the picture reminds me, see, in that picture, she's 25 years old. And when I was 25 years old, I was at that fork in the road, the crux, the place of suicidal ideation and a plan versus raising my hand, not being the firefighter that's drowning with the pride weight around my ankles and asking, wanting, needing help. And I think that if any of you are struggling with not just depression, but any other mental health piece regards to anxiety, post-traumatic stress, or a multitude of things, man, raise your hand, utilize the resources. Because the reason I show all the pictures during the PowerPoint that I wish you could have all seen is because there is so much life in those places of hope that people can get to see. And so we have a privilege of being able to support people in that and be peer supporters that can walk in that with others. And I think I think we are making progress. I'm seeing more and more hands in the first responder world going up, in the stigma coming down, and providing the help that we need for one another so that we can be the best firefighter, police officer, EMS provider, dispatcher, husband, spouse, parent, friend, whatever it is. We're making progress, and it's all about progress and not perfection. So, guys, that's what I have. This was totally weird for me to not be able to see you or have interaction with you. I don't see any chat messages up here. Hopefully I am seeing everything. I'm sorry if I missed something and I'm not seeing it. But like I said, again, I'm going to tell you a few contacts. Phone number 913-636-9054. Email rhole@lenexa.com. Feel free to reach out to me anytime, and I would be happy to hopefully be helpful to you in some way. I hope this was helpful to you, and everybody take care of themselves. All right. See you soon. Bye.